big an event is this in the context of your sport? I would suggest that Wheelchair Rugby League continues to heighten its own profile. Do you feel obliged to keep standards high? Do you still feel that hunger from the media and rugby league watchers everywhere, James, to put a show on?
I've always felt obligated to do it for the past few years, being an ambassador for the World Cup, and now this past 12 months where we've seen a huge growth in Wheelchair Rugby League on and off the field. It's been insane, but I'm always obligated. I feel like to keep ourselves for years behind the shadow. So now it's more of a pleasure to do it now because people are actually listening to us and helping us and pushing us. But yeah, and I think this is the first. We had the Challenge Cup earlier in the year, but this is the first big final since the World Cup final, and we've had 10 months of building and preparation, and then the documentary came out yesterday. So we had the awards due last night as well. So I feel like this week Wheelchair Rugby League is probably a really big high in people's kind of eye line, and it's out there. So this final will definitely be I think the biggest event since the World Cup final, pre-France test in a few weeks. But and you've got Leeds and Wigan, two huge rugby league clubs that are known through the country, so we're going to get a huge crowd in there as well. So yeah, I feel like post World Cup, after 10 months of working and pushing and growing, and after this week specifically, this weekend's going to be a big do. Yeah, it's going to be ace.
We talked so much about the heightened profile of your sports since the World Cup, and I don't want to go down that route because we don't need to. I'm just wondering, actually, since you mentioned the documentary on BBC Four, whether you pulled even newer audience members in from very unusual quarters for the final and for the future of Wheelchair Rugby League.
I think it's probably too early to tell because we're not even at 24 hours since it came out yet, but I've definitely know of people who've bought tickets since the documentary. One of the players was in a shop earlier today, actually, and this is a true story, and he texted me saying, I've just bumped into someone who saw the documentary last night and has bought tickets for the final this weekend. So already we've seen that little kind of effect of the documentary, and I feel like now it's starting to get out there and people are starting to share it. I feel like it's going to get even more. And I think having a look behind the scenes is so much deeper than just seeing what is presented by the governing body and by the clubs. You're actually getting to know the players and the staff. And I feel like that emotional connection that they're privy to will make them want to come even more, because you're getting to actually see these players that you've got to know through this 90-minute documentary that went out there.
Unfortunately, from your and the team's point of view, you've still got a job to do on the court. In terms of skill level, how much of a test will Wigan be?
They're a big test. They're a really good side, and they're a side a bit like us. They really lean into the fact they're a rugby league club, and they're all rugby league fans. I know most of that team will be going to Old Trafford on Saturday to watch the running game final with Wigan being there. So it'll be a really big test. And, Dec Roberts is coming into his form now. When you've been playing the game as long as Dec, sometimes it's hard to get amped up for things. But when there's a grand final on the line, the day after the Wigan running game team, that's the kind of game you get fired up for. So it'll be a huge test, but we know we can match them. And I don't like to kind of blow our own trumpet, but I feel like we've got more than they've got, on the day. But it's going to be a test, and it's a knockout final. It's going to come down to the last 20, 30 minutes, who can hold the nerve and who can kind of dig out that extra reserve.
Do you feel standards of skill levels and all the other things that belong to a contest like this, James, are they rising or are they plateauing at the moment in the game?
Absolutely rising. Yeah. And especially, I don't want to keep harping on about the World Cup, but that kind of showed a lot of the other nations that maybe are in clubs in this country that they have to get better if they want to compete internationally. So that's feeding down into the clubs. The coaches have realised the players need to get better, fine-tune, do things differently. Maybe the old 5 drives and a kick doesn't really work anymore, so we need to be tailoring things and getting better. And I think Wheelchair Rugby League being a really young sport is me personally taking over the team this year. I've reached out to wheelchair basketball, to wheelchair tennis, to other wheelchair sports who have gone through this journey, who are older wheelchair sports than us, to find out how they've done things. And I've learned loads from them. So I feel like that is happening on a smaller scale between the clubs and internationally. Players know they need to get better now, especially going up against us and up against France. They've realised what they need to sharpen up on if they want to compete internationally and at the top domestically.
That means spectators, we need to be ready for some quite innovative surprise plays.
Yeah, you're just going to see. I think people are really embracing now the fact that. So we've done it for a while, being rugby league fans and watching the game. We incorporate wingers like you do in fullbacks, wrapping around. So you won't have players set out; they'll be wrapping around to create overlaps, like you'd see a fullback doing. And Wigan do that as well. But other because they're running, they watch the game. Where some of the other clubs who maybe aren't as into the running game of rugby league as we are haven't done that, and you're starting to see it more and more inside balls, more wraparound things like that maybe you didn't used to see, but you're seeing a lot more options and a lot more skill. When you've only got 5 people on the pitch, it's sometimes you think it's hard to create those options and those overlaps, but it can be done with just a little bit of thinking and a little bit of extra pushing.
Excellent. We'll look forward to the end product in the final against Wigan. In the context of the week that we've just spent, I'm thinking about York against Leeds Rhinos, the women's grand final. Let's be greedy about the future of wheelchair rugby league. Is there scope for more players, more female players specifically, to come into the sport, James? Is there work to be done there, do you think?
There's always work to be done with any branch of rugby league, really. But we're really proud at Leeds. Like last year, including me, we had 8 players. That was it. This year, we're up to over 30, and I'm not one of those. So we're up to over 30 players. We've got our first team. We've now got a community team. We've started an under-16s kind of program, which is just getting off the ground. We played a friendly against Bradford a few weeks ago, our community team did, and we managed to put out a full female side. So now we're at Leeds, we're getting the ability to actually have a full female side. So, yeah, there's always work to be done, but I feel like clubs like us that have the resources and the passion and the drive, if we do it and we go for it, hopefully other clubs will see that and they'll come as well, and they'll keep driving. But I think rugby league as a whole, we're always pushing outward to try and find a bit more and get a bit more. And I'm greedy. I want Leeds to be the best, not just on the field, but off the field. I want us to be the best. And I want other clubs to aspire to be doing what we're doing. So I'm greedy about it like that. But wheelchair rugby league as a whole is we're in a very unique position where we are rugby league and we are rugby league people. But we've got something that we can send to other markets as well. Like we can make variations of 9s tournaments with 4 players instead of 5, and we can package that off and put on TV. Do you know, we aren't restricted by the constraints of traditional rugby league. We can get into little other markets as well. And I look at other clubs like, and this is a bit bold, but like football clubs, I'm like, why can't big football clubs with big foundations, why don't they have a wheelchair rugby league team? We don't have to be constricted in rugby league. We can go bigger and we can kind of branch out there and get even further afield. That's me being really greedy, but I feel like we can break boundaries that are bigger than rugby league as well.
Absolutely. Good luck to you, because you're working as pioneers, and we look forward to the end product, and your work is appreciated as usual, James. Thank you very much from all of us.
Anytime, mate. Thanks.
I'm done there, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
mate.
James, sorry, just a few more on the back of Paul's questions.
Go for it, mate.
I'm interested. Obviously, the results-wise, things been going well for Leeds this year. But I was wondering, personally, how have you found that transition from playing to coaching?
Stressful. Yeah, but I love it. I kind of play a coach for 2 years, and I love playing. I loved playing it. I absolutely loved it. But I really fell in love with coaching. I fell in love with the tactical side, the planning, the motivation, and just helping players come on and be better. And that got really challenging this year. Like I said before, where we went from 8 players to 30, and now I'm coaching players who've just won a World Cup final and a player who's in the chair for the first time ever. And I'm having to figure out how to juggle that and to make those sessions really inclusive. But I loved it, and I loved that challenge. And I've managed to, at Leeds, make a hybrid where everyone's together. We don't separate the players. So these new players are learning off people who have just been in World Cup finals. And then we kind of tailor the session a bit later down the line. But yeah, it's great having that depth in a squad where everyone's learning off each other. And I've got stuff wrong. Do you know, like one of the biggest learning curves for me this year was losing the Challenge Cup final. Do you know, it's you don't learn when you're winning, and losing that, I went away from that and I had a really big reflection, and I learned loads, and that really impacted the rest of our year. And that's what got us the league leaders. That's what got us to the final. But yeah, I learned a lot from that loss, and I'm still learning. I'm in my first year really properly, but yeah, I'm definitely learning. And I've really tried to, I kind of mentioned reaching out to wheelchair tennis, wheelchair basketball. And this year, for the first time, we've taken analysis really seriously. We film all our games. I review it back. I send footage to the players. And it's the first time we've ever done that. And it's making a huge difference as well. And other clubs are starting to do it as well now, which I kind of like. But yeah, I'm attacking coaching like I attacked playing, and I'm trying to embrace it as much as I can and learn as much as I can as well.
In terms of those lessons that you took from the Challenge Cup final, is there anything or things particularly that stand out of what were the biggest things you learned?
Yeah, you've got to find your way of doing things. And when we came to the Challenge Cup final, like having played with these players and knowing them all really well, I amped it up too much and made it too much of a spectacle, where actually we're very laid back, very relaxed. You got people like Nathan Collins and Josh Butler who've been playing 12 years. Do you know, like they just need to like do their thing without the extra pressure. And I kind of came into that a bit like, this is a Challenge Cup final. When actually it's just another game. Do you know, let's just go out there and do what we do. And so we kind of dialed that back a lot, and we made training very different, where we don't do anything static, everything's moving, everything's fluid, you know, so that's how the players get the best out of them. But yeah, I just had to learn how to approach big games now as a coach, and not as a player, as a captain, and as a part-time coach, really.
Yeah, and obviously, sort of sitting here listening to you talking about the tactical side of things and that, it's a conversation of certainly I've not really heard anyone talk about in terms of wheelchair rugby league before. Is the fact that they are sort of discussing those things now and people are taking more awareness of those things another sign of how the sport's not just growing but evolving as well to actually there are those conversations being had sort of in a public forum now.
Definitely, yeah, and I don't mind talking about it, because I feel like you can watch it; it's there. But I watch me playing for England in 2015, and the tactics even then internationally were awful, and that was playing for like internationally on the big stage, and how much the game's evolved, and it's had to evolve because the teams that are starting to take those extra steps are starting to crawl ahead, or sometimes race ahead. So other teams are having to adapt as well. And I see it a lot when I watch games. You can see certain teams do certain tactics, and sometimes as a coach, you kind of think, well, surely everyone's going to do it this way because that seems to work. And you realize whole teams will build their whole style of play and tactics maybe around one or two players, whether that's the skill of that player or maybe that player has a certain advantage or something, so they'll build around it. But yeah, and I find it really interesting talking to the other coaches, and I'm quite happy to talk to them about things and reasons we do things and they do things. But I feel like that's how we're getting better and we're learning. But yeah, I feel like with any sport, when you really want to be competitive, you need to change and you need to evolve. And I found being at Leeds, there's always a certain expectation that you have to win something, or you need to be winning something. So it sometimes can be tricky to sustain that. And I felt that this year a bit, where how do I keep players who've played 12 years, who've won World Cups, motivated? And that's a challenge in itself, to keep those players focused, especially when we only play a 12-game year, but that is spread over 6 months. So sometimes we have 3 weeks without a game. How do I keep those players motivated and interested and wanting to keep on top for such a long period of time, which is still essentially just a totally amateur sport as well?
Are we getting to the point as well, perhaps, where it's just something I sort of thought of, but where perhaps we need to look at perhaps having specific coaching qualifications for the wheelchair game? Because obviously, like you do your level 2 coaching qualification with RFL or whatever, it is solely running game focused. And while there are certain things that can carry over, there's obviously a lot of other things as well, which will be probably need to be more wheelchair focused if you intent on coaching that and want to get a qualification.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have the level 2 bolt on, like the wheelchair level 2, which is a day or 2 days. I can't remember. But yeah, the game now has got so much more kind of tactical nuance that it is something that needs looking at, I think. But we can't ever shy away from that. Like I did my level 2 running game, and I did it at Weewood, and I did it in January, and I was stood on the path while the rest of the students were in the mud, and I was coaching from the path. So they were like getting dirty while I was clean as a whistle. But there's definitely something about keeping that running game, that rugby league level 2 qualification, where you're in the room and you're wearing a Nines t-shirt and that guy's wearing a Parramatta t-shirt. There's something about that keeps it very rugby league. But definitely the wheelchair coaching course is something we can really look at tweaking and changing, I think, especially when you look at other wheelchair sports that do that, like wheelchair tennis, for example. They then have quite a big wheelchair tennis coaching program, and their other wheelchair sports have like regional coaches that are overseen by the national coach. So that is something I think down the line we'll have to start looking at as well, like making regional coaching areas for wheelchair, so the national coach can't be everywhere at once. So let's kind of spread that knowledge as well and learn from each other as well.
Yeah, just on Leeds as well. Now, obviously, you talked a bit about the newer players who are coming through, and of course, one of your younger members of the team, Josh Butler, got the wheelchair young player of the year award at the awards night last night. What can people who are tuning in on Sunday expect to see from him then, and what makes him such a special player?
Yeah, Josh has played this game longer than me, 10, 12 years. He's like, if there was a heritage number, he'd probably be 3 for Rhinos. You know, he's been here since the beginning. But Josh, the last 12 months, he played in the mid-season international against France. He didn't get selected to play in the World Cup, and that was a huge fire that was set inside him. And over the off-season, he's been in the gym, he's been training, he's always tinkering with his chair to make sure it's like marginal gains, it's 1%. He's always working hard, and his vision of the game has changed. And it's almost like he's just switched, and it's like an overnight success that took a year, but something in him's changed, and that's absolutely changed how he does things on and off the pitch. The way he conducts himself off the pitch is phenomenal, you know, and he won Young Player of the Year, but for me, he could have had them both. He could have taken Player of the Year and Young Player. But what you'll see from Josh is line breaks, support runs, you know, offloading. He'll do things that he didn't do a year ago. And I feel like when you see it for the first time, you might think that there's always been Josh, but this is a new version of Josh that has, you know, scored 28 tries this year alone, highest in the league, and he didn't have all those kind of arsenal in his game. But I think one of the big things, they won't mind me saying, is he's really matured as a person. You know, like he's still very young. He's 20 years old, or maybe 21, but he's still very young for the game. When I'm nearly 40, and you know, but he has, and all that has just impacted how he plays on the field. But he's a phenomenal athlete, and like he'll be pivotal on Sunday as well. Getting the best out of him will be pivotal.
Yeah, and just finally, obviously, what would it? Yeah, you sort of alluded to it anyway. There's always that expectation at Leeds, whether you're the men's, the women's, or the wheelchair side, that you'll be up there competing. What would it mean then to bring the Super League title back to Leeds this year?
Well, we've lost our last 2 big finals, so the Super League final and the Challenge Cup final. So just getting back on that big stage and winning, you know, showing people that we can still do it and we can still win. And with me retiring from playing, the team can do it without me on the field. You know, like that's a big driver. Is some people kind of assume I'm still out there because they're used to seeing my face, and I'm like, I'm not there anymore. It's the team without me. So it'll mean a lot to me as a coach, and just for the wider picture, this club is so good to us that you want to repay them by doing them proud, and the women's team, the men's team, everyone who's a part of it, you want to do the whole club proud and represent what that badge means, and nobody knows that more than us and the players out there, and we don't let that pressure get to us. We kind of relish that, and we enjoy doing it because we want to do it for the club and the bigger picture.